Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and click on that like button if you like my video. Also click on that notification bell. Thank you. At this point, you have some experience and knowledge of information technology. And now you are wondering if you can learn automation, particularly Ansible automation. But you might be a little scared of programming or coding and not sure if you could do it, right? Perhaps you have taken a few courses online, but really didn't get the skills that you are looking for. Ansible is one of the most famous automation tools in IT industry, and you should have some experience or exposure to it, especially if you want to level up your career. That is why I bring you this course, which will provide you not only the conceptual understanding of Ansible, but also we will have extensive technical hands-on experience by setting up the lab, and we will automate many everyday tedious tasks. Hi, my name is Imran Afzal, and I've been in IT for over 20 years now. I have been teaching many IT-related courses for many years. I have my bachelor's degree from Baruch College and my MBA from New York Institute of Technology. If you are ready to take your automation skills to the next level, then come join me in this course on Ansible automation, where you will learn everything you need to know about Ansible. In this video, we will have a quick introduction of Ansible. We'll find out what Ansible is. Ansible is an open source software provisioning, configuration, management, and application deployment tool, enabling infrastructure as code. It runs on many Unix-like systems and can configure both Unix-like systems as well as Microsoft Windows. And that's the exact definition that we have from Wikipedia. So, to put it in a simple words, or I would say my definition, Ansible is basically a free automation tool that can automate IT tasks on local machine where Ansible is running and on remote machine. So anything that you wanted to automate, like a regular daily tasks for your IT needs, you could use Ansible to automate that. All right, so let's visualize it and understand exactly the purpose or how Ansible works. So let's say if you have a Linux machine or a Windows machine and you want to configure Apache in it or NTP server or anything that you want to configure. So what do? You log into that machine, SSH into it, and configure it. Beautiful. What if you have two machines? Well, you could do the same thing, log in and configure it. And if you have three machines, again, you could log into the third machine, SSH into it, and configure it. All right, that works in a smaller environment. Now, what if you have three, six, nine, 12, thousands or thousands of machines, for example, in a larger environment? Are you going to log into every single machine if you have to change a configuration on or similar configuration on all of them? No, right? It would be very cumbersome and it will take you a lot of time to log into every single machine and make that change. That's where you create an Ansible server, or that's where the Ansible tool is born. So you set up an Ansible server, which is also known as a control node. You install the Ansible software onto that machine. Then you log into that machine using SSH, the same way you will log into any Linux machine. And then you make the change to a configuration file on that control node and then push that configuration to all the different nodes or make the change to all the configuration of all the machines. See how easy it becomes when you do that through one server? Please note, Ansible is written in Python language, but it does not mean you need Python knowledge to use Ansible because Ansible has provided a very easy language to use to automate your tasks, which we'll cover later on. All right, Ansible can be used two Provision system, meaning you could actually build systems from scratch using Ansible. Ansible is also used to configure those systems. Now you have the operating system built, the system is ready. Now you have to configure the system, meaning services or which way or you want your system to work. Once that is done, then you could deploy applications as well. Let's say if you have to install Apache application or SAP application or database on your system, then you could deploy those applications using Ansible. Once those deployed, it doesn't end here. You could manage those systems and applications using Ansible. So if you have to upgrade your system, for example, 6 months from now or after the deployment, then you could use Ansible to do that. Now let's take a look at a few examples of the tasks that can be automated using Ansible. Provisioning, which we already have talked about. You could actually provision your bare metal server, virtualization systems, network devices, storage system, cloud platform. Also, you could do system configuration, as I mentioned. What are the examples of system configurations? Such as updates or upgrades, package installation, service configuration, stop, start, restart of any services that can be done using Ansible. Users and groups. You could create one user on one server, or you could create that same user to multiple servers at the same time. Assigning permissions to files and directories. Moving on, you could do application deployment, backups, weekly or monthly system reboots, orchestration. What is orchestration? Orchestration is a way of automating your system step by step in a specific order. So let's take an example of e-commerce. In e-commerce, you have to have application setup, database setup, and web services. So you could actually let the system know through orchestration, and that orchestration wraps around Ansible that it should reboot or restart application services, database services, and then it should start the web services. So everything happens in a certain order. That is an orchestration that you could actually have that within Ansible to handle it. So that's how Ansible works, or a quick overview of Ansible. In this video, we will learn how Ansible works. So we know until now that Ansible is used to automate our IT tasks. All right. So very first thing is each of those specific tasks in Ansible is written through module or a group of modules. Multiple modules are written in sequential order as how you want them to be executed. Then multiple modules for related tasks is called a play. If you have one, two, or three modules to perform certain tasks, or they are related to each other, then together that's a task that become a play. Then all of those little plays together makes a playbook. Playbook is written as a file format called YAML. All right. So through these statements, if you still have a confusion or still don't understand how Ansible works, that's perfectly fine. Let's visualize it. You start writing your YAML file through Vim or VI, whichever your preferred editor is, and you want to execute tasks to all the remote servers. Those remote servers or your hosts are the web servers. All right. On those web servers, you have installed the operating system. Everything's done. It's time to install HTTPD. And if you need to install HTTP, you have to use a module to install a package. Then you have to enable HTTP. That enabling is the service of HTTP. And then you have to use a module. That module will be a service module. Same thing, then you have to start that HTTP service and you will use a service module. All right, that all of them, all three of them together makes a play because they are all related tasks. When I say related, it all has to do with HTTP, HTTP, HTTP. All right. Next one is enable HTTP port on firewall. Now, that is another module. That module is to enable or go to firewall and enable port 80 for HTTP. That's a play itself because it's not part of the play right above where we are starting or and installing HTTP because in this one we are going to firewall. However, all of these together because all these tasks or all these modules are combined together makes a task because they are going to the web servers. All right, so now if you wanted to do certain task or run certain task on database servers and you wanted to use the same YAML file, then you will most likely will log into database server, create a table, restart the database. All three of them would require a module to do that. And that three modules makes a play. And then, of course, that's another task because it's going to another set of servers. All right, all of these three plays together, if you are done with that file, makes the playbook. And that playbook is written in what language? It's written in YAML format. All right, moving on, commands example that are used to run Ansible. To run modules through a YAML file, you would have to run the command ansible-playbook, that's all one command, space, followed by the name of the YAML file. Then it will simply go through all the modules you have written inside of the YAML file and execute them sequentially. To run module independently, meaning if you wanted to run a specific module without running it through a YAML file as an ad hoc, you could do just Ansible. My servers, for example, my server are the list of your hosts. And let's say if you want to run the module ping to ping them, you could do that. For this, you don't need a YAML file. However, we will cover that later on, so not to worry about it right now. Ansible configuration files are etc Ansible, ansible.cfg, etc Ansible host. That's where all of your hosts or remote hosts where you want to execute your task on. All of them reside in this file. And then etc Ansible roles. Roles is where if you want to separate each of the plays on a separate files, that becomes a lot easier so there your YAML file doesn't look cluttered. Anyway, once again, we'll cover roles later on. So that's how Ansible works. Maybe if you are still a little confused, trust me on this. Don't worry about it. I'll take it. I'll make it so easy for you that you will understand everything one by one in the later lectures. In this video, we will cover the other automation tools, and I'm sure you have heard of them. One is Puppet, and the other one is the Chef. Now let's take a quick look and do a quick comparison to from these tools to Ansible. These tools, Puppet and Chef, both uses Ruby language, which is more difficult to learn, and their support is diminishing or declining day by day. These tools require agents to be installed on your remote clients or your end clients where you want the IT automation to be executed. The installation process for these tools is very complex. And the lack of documentation is another factor where Ansible has a more advantage over these tools. All right, coming in and looking at Ansible, it uses very simple YAML format or YAML coding, whatever that you want to call it. It's very easy to understand. Once you're going to look at it, you will know for sure that it's very easy to write. You don't really need to know or you don't have to have a coding background to use or write a YAML file. It is agentless, which is awesome because you don't have to go to your thousands of servers and install agents and require root access to do that. It only requires an SSH access, meaning you generate the keys on your Ansible and then send over to all the other remote clients. By the way, we'll cover that later on. Then easy installation. A lot easier. It's just a simple configuration installation as you would do with any other package on Linux system. And the last one, again, it's well-documented product. As I mentioned earlier, you could find a lot of documentation or a lot of websites where you could get and download its document. Plus, There are man pages on the Linux system which you could run to find the options. Or if you want to learn more about the options of each module, you can get that from either on any of those websites or through the man pages. Up until this point, we have a lot of good information about Ansible. There is one confusion that always around, and I know a lot of system administrators have this confusion, is open source Ansible versus Red Hat Ansible. Is Red Hat Ansible different from the open source Ansible? No. So let's take a look. Ansible itself is a free open source software. It was purchased by Red Hat, yes, in 2015. Ansible software itself, the tool, the package itself is free, even though it is owned by Red Hat. So clarifying it once again, Ansible is the same software across all platforms. The only difference is Red Hat provides additional product, which is Ansible Tower, and consulting or technical support for Ansible, which you don't get if you just wanted to run um, Ansible and you don't need any support, or you don't need any Ansible Tower. You could get support from the community, but it's not guaranteed that you're going to get the response back in a timely fashion, or if you have an SLA that you need to fulfill, then it's better that you go with the consulting or technical support. All right, if you want to learn more about it, I would highly recommend you to go to www.redhat.com. Let's take a quick look on Red Hat Ansible Tower. Red Hat provides Ansible Tower, which is GUI-based, graphical user interface-based tool to manage Ansible automation. Ansible Tower is a paid product by Red Hat, and it manages multiple Ansible servers for a large enterprise environment. So if you have production, non-prod, DR, QA, all those different environment, and you probably have your control node or Ansible server on all these different environment, then it's best that you use Ansible Tower. So Ansible Tower can manage all your nodes under one single pane of glass. There is another tool which provides somewhat similar functionality as Ansible Tower, and that is Ansible AWX. This tool is open source, and it's of course a free software. Now, when you use Ansible AWX, you're not going to get the support from Red Hat. So if you are in a larger, huge, big environment, in corporate environment, my recommendation is always go with Ansible Tower so you could get all the support that you need from Red Hat. But if you're still confident that you are able to manage your own environment without any support, then be my guest and go with Ansible AWX. In this video, we will cover a brief history of Ansible. The Ansible project was started in 2012 by Michael D. Hann. It is an open source and community driven, and I'm sure you know the open source and the community driven, when people get together from different part of the world toward one goal to build a tool. And open source is you could build your own code and add that to that tool to enhance its features. Then Ansible Incorporation was purchased by Red Hat in 2015. When it's purchased, even today, it is still open source, but certain part or certain features, I would say, of Ansible can be purchased from Red Hat, such as Ansible Tower, or if you need a subscription for support or consulting, that you could buy from Red Hat. It is available for most of the Linux distributions, such as Red Hat, CentOS, Fedora, Ubuntu, Debian, and SUSE. Now, Ansible can only be installed, the engine itself can only be installed on Linux systems. You cannot install on Windows servers. However, you could manage and automate Windows systems tasks using Ansible. All right, let's take a quick look at the need of Ansible. Once again, very fast infrastructure management, especially the virtualization. When we have thousands virtual machines and we build virtual machines in a very fast way, you don't want to build them manually. It becomes cumbersome and tedious. That's when you use Ansible. Configuration management for system and application, multi-tier application automation like orchestration, single point of automation, meaning if you have a one server like Ansible, you could change everything on that server and then push it out to all the rest of the world, meaning the rest of the virtual machines. When you are learning certain tool, it is important that you should know why you are learning or what's the benefit of learning that tool. So I have compiled a list of all the benefits that Ansible has to offer. And the very first one is it is agentless. What it means that Ansible can be installed on one server, and let's say if you have to manage 100 other servers, you don't need to install the Ansible or its agent to those other 100 servers. All you need is an SSH access to that server and then let Ansible do the rest. Then Ansible is open source. It has its features that can be changed or added as you move on, or you could also not only rely on the company to add its feature, you could request a feature and have them updated by the community. Then avoid human errors. If you have to make changes to one, two, or three servers, most likely you're not going to make a mistake. But if you're repeating the same procedure on 10 or 15 or 20 different servers, then most likely you will make a mistakes. And especially when we are talking about the larger environment where you have to manage or log into thousands of different servers and do the same configuration change, then I'm very sure that you will make a mistake because I know I have made a mistakes in the past. So when you are making a change on only on one place and on Ansible server and you're double checking it and you're pushing it out to other servers, beautiful. You don't have to make a mistake. There won't be a chance of human errors. So, of course, when you are automating tasks, what is it doing for you? It is saving you time. And once your time is saved, what happens? It increases your productivity. You could focus on other projects in your organization and let Ansible do these repetitive, boring, tedious tasks for you. Easy to use? Yes, it's a lot easier. When I learned Ansible, I had to learn from scratch, I tell you that. But it's so easy to learn, especially for those who know Linux. You don't have to be really good in Linux, but if you have a basic understanding of Linux, it's a lot easier to use. It's simple, human readable text file. What it means is the playbooks that we're gonna write to automate tasks, those playbooks are so simple, human readable text file. You would know by looking at it. That's a lot easier. It's not really like a code or C++ code where you look at it and you're like, oops, what is that? No, it's very easy to read and understand. It's flexible. Moving on, it's secure. Yes, if it's agentless and you are doing everything over SSH, as you know, SSH stands for Secure Shell. So if you are connecting to all your remote hosts over SSH, it's automatically secure. All right, moving down the line or moving down the list, it provides pre-written modules. So you don't have to have your own or create your own module to do certain tasks. Let's say if you have to do a yum install, you have a module for it. Let's say if you wanted to start a service, you have a module for it. Most of the tasks that we do in a Linux environment or even Windows environment, we have a pre-written modules for them. It's very easy to learn, of course. Now, remember, as long as you have a good instructor, I will make sure that you learn everything about Ansible in this entire course. All right, great product for orchestration. Yes, if you have an environment where you have to schedule tasks or put them in order, it's a great product for that. Ansible can be used not only for systems but also for network storage and cloud. All those gears that you have that you if you wanted to configure them, you could use Ansible for it. It provides approximately 1300 module out of the box and about 4000 module on Galaxy. As we're going to go through the modules, right now you probably don't know what module is, but module, just to give you a quick update, module is something that provides you to automate a certain task. We'll cover that later. Right out of the box, it had 13 of those sorry, 1,300 of those. All right, huge online Ansible resources. That's for documentation, that's for module, that's for systems information. You could go to Ansible, docs.ansible, galaxy.ansible, GitHub, and many, many other online resources where you'll find great, great documentations and resources on Ansible. And the last but not the least, it's a big plus for job seekers who are looking for a job and for those who are already in IT and they want to level up their career. If you want to be in DevOps, which is the development operations, and if you want to enhance your skills, Ansible is the tool for you. If you know Linux, if you are in the system administration, Ansible is the answer for you because I know the system administrator does a lot of automations. You probably write shell scripts to automate your things, or you write PowerShells in Windows. With Ansible, you don't have to do that in every server. Here is the answer to your prayers where you do or manage or automate all your IT tasks. In this video, we will cover the terminologies used in Ansible. The very first one is the control node or Ansible server. The server which runs Ansible application. This is the main Linux server where Ansible engine or Ansible application or tool is installed, and that's where you could create or manage all your playbooks, and you could send or communicate from this server to all the remaining or remote clients. This server is called control node. Then modules. Module is a command meant to be executed on the client side. Most of the IT task modules are already created and can be found on Ansible website. There are almost 1,300 modules out of the box that are available and about 4,000 plus modules on Ansible Galaxy websites. You could go to docs.ansible.com and search for modules of your choice if you want to automate a certain task. You could also go to galaxy.ansible.com. Now let's look at the example of modules. Of course, we will cover modules in great detail later on. Install HTTP. For example, if that's something you want to do, when you want to install HTTP, what command you do? You use either yum or in newer versions of Linux, you could use DNF. So you do have a module for that. You don't have to actually use the yum command or DNF command itself. You rely on the module. Same way you enable the service, there's a service module for it. And you could start that service. There's a service module for that as well. These are pretty much two modules that you see. One is to install HTTP, and second module that is used is to enable and start the service. When we combine all of these three, they become a task. That task is within a YAML file. Now let's talk about a task. A task is a section that consists of single procedure to be completed. A task can have multiple modules. As we have seen in the above example, there are installing HTTP package. Once it's installed, we enable it so it could start at boot time. And then we wanted to start that service. All of that together is comprised of a task. Then you could have more or additional tasks doing different modules. All right, moving on. Then we have a playbook, automation file with step-by-step execution of multiple tasks. So when you combine all those tasks and each task would have multiple modules, that is written in a certain file. That certain file is called a playbook. YAML. YAML stands for a playbook written in YAML language, and YAML itself stands for yet another markup language. So the format that is written within playbook, that format is called YAML. And once that format has all the module and task, it is the final item or the final product is called playbook. Inventory. Now you have a node, a control node, or an Ansible server. You have to go and reach out to the remote servers, right? So those remote servers has to be listed somewhere. That is listed in a file called hosts. And that host file is our inventory file that has information about remote clients where tasks are executed. Moving on to tag, there is another term that used called tag, a reference or alias to a specific task. So this way, you don't have to repeat that module or that task again and again. You could reference it to a tag. Of course, we'll cover that later on. Variable. Variable are like containers that holds or defined value which can be used repetitively. Then a role. Splitting of playbooks into smaller groups. Roles let you automatically load related vars, files, task handlers, and other Ansible artifacts based on a known file structure. After you group your content in roles, you can easily reuse them and share them with other users. So if you have, for example, you wanted to install the Apache server, you wanted to start the service, you could put them into a smaller playbook and then you could put that playbook into a role. So the main playbook doesn't have to be so cluttered, I would say, with all those long list of modules. You could call upon those smaller playbooks, and that's what these roles are for. Anyway, that's the list of terminologies that I wanted to cover. There are a few that I probably not have covered, but anyway, these are the most important ones that you should know as you're gonna learn Ansible. In this video, we are going to talk about how we are going to design and set up our lab. So let's talk about designing our lab first. So if you are in corporate world, you're working for any company, for example, ABC or XYZ company, and you wanted to go through the automation through Ansible, then most likely you do have access to a server or a computer and it has Linux operating system running on it. All you have to do is install Ansible, and then you also have other Linux servers or Windows server for that matter that you want to control and automate tasks onto those servers. So you basically send the commands, the automation commands from Ansible to those clients, and that's how it will work in a corporate world. Now, what if you have a home environment? In home environment or in your lab environment, I would say you would have to find a computer. A computer could be either desktop or laptop. It has to have a Linux operating system running on it, and we will install Ansible on top of the Linux operating system. By the way, if you do not have a Linux operating system directly running on that computer, it's fine. I will show you in the next slide how we're going to go about installing Linux. Then we have to make sure that computer or that Linux machine has a required package, which is Python 3. Again, we'll talk about that later. If that computer is running Windows or the virtual machine that we will be setting up on top of this computer, if it has a Windows running, then please note that Ansible node or Ansible engine cannot be installed on Windows Server. All right, so once we have that Linux machine, then we install the Ansible, and then we could execute all the commands to our remote clients. Moving on to the detailed design of our lab. So we have two options here. Option number one, we have to find a computer, a desktop or laptop. And let's say if your laptop is running Mac OS or if it's running Windows. That's perfectly fine. All you have to make sure that it has Intel VTX or AMD 64-bit CPU. The operating system which is running on your computer has to be a 64-bit operating system. The computer has to have a 8 gig, minimum 8 gig of RAM, which is the memory. It has to have 40 to 60 gig free disk space. All right, so once you have that, that's the minimum requirement. Then what we will do, we will install an virtualization software on top of that, on that operating system. That virtualization software could either be Oracle VirtualBox or it could be VMware Workstation Player. Then we will create a virtual machine, a very first virtual machine on that virtualization software, and then we will install Linux operating system. That Linux operating system could either be CentOS, or Red Hat, or Ubuntu. Ansible can be installed and can be run on any of these operating systems. We will install Ansible engine or Ansible software on these operating system, and that virtual machine or that virtual computer will become our control node. Any Ansible engine which controls the remote clients or other clients is known as control node. Then we will create another virtual machine that would have either Linux or Windows, whichever computer that you want to control. So in our lab design or in this course, we will create one extra virtual machine which we will control through a control node. If you have enough resources, then I would say, aside from client 1, we'll create another client, a VM3 running Linux as well, and we will call it client 2. Now, this is our option 1. What's the second option? The second option is if you do not have the required resources or a computer or a desktop in your home, then you could actually utilize one of those cloud services such as AWS, Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure. Create an account, and most of these cloud services gives you free account and free access to create virtual machines. In this example or in this option, you will create a VM1 and then you will install Linux operating system on it. Again, it could be either CentOS, Red Hat, or Ubuntu. Then we will install Ansible on it, and that becomes our control node. Then we'll create VM2 as our remote client, which we will be running or executing our commands through control node. In that VM2, of course, we will install a Linux. Same thing, this is going to be client 1. Same thing with VM3, Linux, and that becomes client 2. So that's our option 2. But in this entire course, we will go through option 1. And by the way, the VM1, that's where we will install the Linux operating system. In this entire course, we will go through the CentOS or CentOS operating system installation, and we will set our control node on that operating system and install the Ansible on it. In this video, we are going through the installation of virtualization software. So the very first thing we have to do is to identify whether we are using a laptop or a desktop. That's going to be your home lab. It could either run a Mac operating system or Windows operating system. Then the next thing we'll have to do is install a virtualization software on it. The virtualization software for this course, we will be using Oracle VirtualBox. If you're using Apple Mac OS with M1 chip, then you would have to go with UTM virtualization software. All right, so first thing is, what is a virtualization software? Virtualization software is a software that runs on top of your existing operating system, and it allows you to create virtual machines on top of your existing operating system, so you do not have to remove the existing operating system. What is Oracle VirtualBox? So Oracle VirtualBox is a free software. It's a virtualization software by Oracle that we will be using in this course. You could go with a VMware Workstation Player as well if that is something that you are familiar with and that's something you prefer. Then we will go ahead and download the Oracle VirtualBox. And then once it's downloaded, we'll go ahead and install Oracle VirtualBox on our computer. My computer is using a Windows 64-bit operating system. If you are using Windows computer, then you could go to your search menu and type my computer or this PC, right click and go to properties. Here you will find out the processor information and the memory that you have installed, the type of computer. As I said previously, it has to be a 64-bit operating system. All right, once you have confirmed, now it's time to go ahead and download the Oracle VirtualBox. By the way, if you already are familiar with Oracle VirtualBox or you already have a virtual machine running Linux operating system to install Ansible, then you could simply skip this entire video. All right, if you're doing this for the first time, then let's go ahead and start up your browser. Any browser of your choice, I'll go ahead with Firefox. And here I'll type it in download Oracle VirtualBox. Go to the one that says virtualbox.org, click on it, and pick your operating system. Since our operating system is Windows, so we'll pick Windows host, and it will start the download process. Once it's downloaded, perfect. Go ahead and click open file. Now this is the time to do the installation. All right, you might get a message say, do you want to allow this app to make changes to your device? Click yes. All right, welcome to Oracle VM VirtualBox. The version setup wizard, just simply follow the wizard. Leave everything default, click next. Choose from the following options: create a start menu, create a shortcut on desktop, create a shortcut quick launch bar. I'll leave that out. And register file association, leave everything as default, click next. Proceed with installation. Warning, network interface. Installing Oracle VM VirtualBox networking feature will reset your network connection and temporarily disconnect you from the network. So if you are running any other important or production critical application on your machine, this machine where we're installing, then I would say stop them first because the network adapter will reset and it will give you a brief interruption on the network. So if not, if it's just a lab or home computer, then simply click yes and install. All right, Oracle VM VirtualBox version installation is complete. Click Finish button to exit the setup, and also a check mark is already there by default if you wanted to start it when you click Finish. All right, so as soon as the application or the software starts up, this is the window box that you will see. Let me minimize the Firefox in the background. And right here, you'll see this is the Oracle VM VirtualBox Manager. This is where you will go in and create virtual machines. And once we create the virtual machine, we'll install the Linux operating system, install Ansible, and we'll go it from there. Hey folks, so this is the last step of our lab setup. We have downloaded and installed Oracle VirtualBox, then we have downloaded and installed Linux operating system. Now it's time to install Ansible software or Ansible engine on our Linux operating system. All right, so one important thing before you go ahead and install Ansible is that I want you to take a VM snapshot. This will allow you to come back or revert back to the VM original state when you took the snapshot in case you do make a mistake or do some kind of misconfiguration on your Linux operating system. All right, so go to our Oracle VirtualBox. Right here, your Ansible control node is powered off. You have this menu. If you don't have this menu, simply click on these three dots, click on snapshot, and then click take. Give it a name. I'm going to give Linux install point, which will remind me this is the time when I've completed the Linux installation. Click OK. All right, it's done, and I'll go ahead and click start. All right, while this virtual machine or this Linux operating system is starting it up, let's go to the next step. which is Ansible installation guide, can be found on this link. So I want you to write down this link because this will give you a lot of good information of step-by-step instruction on installing Ansible. If you are installing on a different version than CentOS 8, which I am going to be installing it on. So if I go to my Firefox, which I have already opened and I am already on that page, on this page you will notice here's a list of all the instructions of installing Ansible on different operating system. Right here is RHEL, CentOS, or Fedora. These are the instructions which we will follow to install it on CentOS. If you are doing it on Ubuntu, follow this instruction. For Debian, follow this instruction. And there are other Unix or Linux type operating system which you could follow the instruction and install Ansible. All right, going back to our slide and going back to our virtual machine. Our virtual machine is up and let's log in as ourself. Okay, so if you notice, this is a smaller windows of VirtualBox. If you wanted to make this window bigger, you could right click on your desktop, go to display setting, and right here where you see resolution, click on it, change the resolution to whichever resolution according to your requirement. I'm going to leave it as is for now. Okay, this is a welcome message that you're gonna get. Every time you start it up, you could actually quit out of it by clicking here and quit. All right, so going back to display, we'll change whatever you have, apply the setting, and it will make it bigger. All right, click on activities, go to the terminal. So we have the terminal open. The next step is for CentOS Red Hat Fedora version 7, you will have to run the command yum dnf. DNF is going to be replacing yum eventually. So for now, you could use either or. So install epel-release and then install Ansible. Now for CentOS 8 or any of the version 8, these are the instructions that we will follow. Go back to our Linux machine. To follow these instructions and install any package, we have to run the command as root. So become root. All right. Now go ahead and run the command yum install epel release. All right. It's asking you to confirm, type Y and confirm again, and the package has been installed. All right. The next thing is yum install Python. Now, with CentOS 8 or newer version of Red Hat or Linux, the Python package should already be installed or installed out of the box. To confirm that, you could run the command rpm-qa and grep for Python. And you'll notice these are all the list of Python packages that's already been installed. Great. Now the next step is to install Ansible. So let's clear the screen and type it in yum or DNF. So in this time we'll run DNF. Install Ansible. This is the Ansible engine or software itself. And then next package that we will install in addition to Ansible is the Ansible documentation. And enter. All right, Ansible and Ansible doc package is completed. To verify it, you can run the command rpm qa and grep for Ansible. All right, it's there, Ansible core and Ansible doc. The next thing is if you are using CentOS 8 and the above steps don't work, then follow these steps. So usually version 8 will come with Python 3. If it's not, then you follow these steps. Yum install Python 3 and then use Python package installer to install Ansible, which is pip3 install Ansible dash doc. All right, moving on. If you're using Red Hat 8 and the above steps that we followed did not work, then you have to enable the Ansible engine repository to install Ansible. And for that, you will run the command subscription-manager repos enabled Ansible repositories, and then install Ansible. All right, so now after Ansible has been successfully installed on your Linux machine, let's confirm. So here is our Linux machine. Let's clear the screen and you will run the command Ansible dash dash version. And it will give you the version of the Ansible engine or Ansible software that has been installed. All right, it is there. We confirmed that. Now run Ansible command module using ping. So it will be Ansible localhost -m ping. This command is going to run Ansible module called ping against the localhost. So simply as if we are doing ping localhost and it is pinging and confirming, it could ping the localhost just like that. We have a ping module within Ansible. By the way, there are many, many, many more modules that we will cover later on. But for now, this is what I wanted to confirm to see if Ansible has been installed. All right, let's check the Ansible config files. So let's clear the screen again. The Ansible files, all of them are located in etc Ansible, and you do listing of the files and directories. You'll see there are roles directory, which we will cover later on. Then there's a hosts file. That's where all the remote clients inventory resides. So we every time we run an Ansible command, it comes to this file to see where are the list of all the hosts or remote clients that it has to execute the commands on. And the last one is ansible.cfg. If you need to make any configuration change on Ansible, you could do it on this configuration files. All right. The last thing, please note, if you have SC Linux enabled on remote nodes, you will also want to install libsclinux-python on them before using any copy file template related function in Ansible. Now, you do not have to go log into each and every one of them. What you could do is you can use the yum module or DNF module in Ansible to install this package on remote hosts that do not have it. All right, so we will disable the SC Linux on our remote client because we are using all that setup in our lab environment. But if you're doing in production, then please make sure you install this libsclinux-python package. All right, so now this completes our entire lab setup and configuration. Now it's time to really get our hands dirty and run our Ansible automation scripts against our local hosts and remote clients. One of the best features for Ansible is to automate or execute tasks on the remote clients. So you will have a control node where you will run the script and execute it against the remote clients. So this is something that we will be covering later on, and for that purpose we will need to create Ansible clients where those commands can be executed. So in this video, what we will do, the first step which we already have done, we identified our home lab, we installed the virtualization software, we created a virtual machine and installed a Linux CentOS operating system. Perfect up until this point. Now the next step is that we will create another virtual machine and we'll call it client 2 or client 1 actually. And then we will install a Linux operating system on it as well. We could install any version of Linux, but we will go with CentOS 7. If you have enough resources on your computer, then you could install another virtual machine which can act as a client, a remote client, and we will install a Linux on it as well. So you will have two clients which you could execute commands on, and that those will be considered as remote clients for your Ansible control node. All right, so we already have one Linux machine, which is right here showing as VM1. We will be creating a VM2, which we will call client 1. So we'll go to our Oracle VirtualBox and simply click on new. There's no new, so we'll go here. Wait a second. We have to go to tools here, and now it will show me the options for new. Okay, click new, and we'll call it Linux Client 1. If you're creating additional client, you'll call it Linux client 2. All right, so it has the links already selected. It has the version already selected. Perfect. Go ahead and click next. The memory, it's always good to give 2 gig. If you have less memory to give out, then leave it as 1 gig. That's fine. Next, create a virtual machine, sorry, virtual disk type, dynamically allocated, and pick a disk 20 gig. Click create, and it has created your Linux client 1. Go to the setting and go to the network and make sure you change the attached to from NAT to bridge adapter. Click OK. Perfect. Now we need to install Linux operating system on it. And as I said, we will be installing CentOS 7 on the client. You could install CentOS 8 or any version of your choice, but for this course, we will be picking CentOS 7 for the client. So we'll go to our Firefox and we'll go to download CentOS. Click on CentOS.org, leave CentOS Linux, which is 7, click on x64, x86-64, pick the first one, and then go to the one that has the highest size or biggest size, which is 9.5, CentOS 7, x86, everything ISO. Click on it, and it will start downloading. Of course, downloading can take time, so in order to save time, I have already downloaded that on my computer. So I'm going to cancel it. Now I have already downloaded. I'm going to minimize it. Now the next thing is I'm going to power it on, which I'm going to click on start. Okay, so now since it's started up, it's asking me where is your ISO image. Click on this little icon folder, add, and I have downloaded the ISO image right here in my folder ISO, and the 7 CentOS 7 is right here. And click open, and then click choose and start. Of course, as it's going through the installation, I'm going to be fast forward so we could save some time. Pick the first one, which is install CentOS 7. All right, so we have the welcome to CentOS 7, leave default, or pick the region according to your requirement. So click continue. Okay, on this screen, leave the date and time as default according to your or where you're located. Keyboard for me is English, language support is English, installation source is local media, software selection, click on that and pick server with GUI. Click done. Go to the installation destination. You already have 20 gig selected. Click done. It will do the automatic partitioning. And network host name, click on client Linux client 1 and click apply and turn on the Ethernet adapter, which is the networking for your Linux machine, and you already did the apply and click done. That part is done. Now click on begin installation. Root password, give a root password of your choice. The stronger that you put, the better it is, but if you pick the weak one, then you have to click done twice. Username, for me, it will be my name. It will automatically change it to my username. And the password, click done twice. All right, so it's starting the installation process. It has a few packages to go through. I'm going to fast forward, and once the installation is completed, then we will reboot the Linux machine, the client, and that will create our first Linux client. Now, of course, if you want to create a second client, go ahead and go to your Oracle VirtualBox and create Linux client 2. But for this course, I am going to use only one Linux machine as a client. Previously, we have downloaded and installed Oracle VirtualBox. Now it's time to go in and create a virtual machine and install Linux operating system. So step by step, the very first thing we did, we identified our computer where we will be installing the virtualization layer. So second thing we did, downloaded and installed the virtualization, which we picked the Oracle VirtualBox. Now the third thing is we'll go and open up our VirtualBox and create a virtual machine. Then the last step is to install Linux operating system. Now, in this course, I'm going to install Linux CentOS version 8 operating system. Of course, you could go with any version of your choice. You could either go with Red Hat 6, 7, 8, or you could go with CentOS, you could go with Ubuntu. All the instructions have been provided. But for this course, we will go with CentOS version 8. All right, so first thing is to create a virtual machine. All right, so you could start your Oracle VirtualBox by typing right here, or simply double click the icon on your desktop. Let's start it from the desktop. Click new to create a new virtual machine. Let's pick the name Ansible Control Node. This is the name of the virtual machine, not the name of your operating system. All right, so pick the type Linux and the version, let's pick Linux 2.6, 64-bit, and click next. This is the size of your memory, which is 1 gig by default. Let's change it to 2 gig, 2048. Next. This is going to ask you about your disk. Create a virtual disk now. The file type, leave it default, and change the disk size to 20 gig. If you are planning on adding a lot of scripts or a lot of huge files onto your Ansible control node, then change the size according to your requirement. Click Create. Now your virtual machine has been created. I want you to go to Setting, and you will see in general it has the name and the type of operating system that will be hosting on this computer. Go to System. If you want to change the memory, you could change it now. If you want to change the processor, which is given as 1 CPU by default, if you want to change it now. Go to Storage and click on Ansible Control Node.vdi, and you will see this is the 20 gig that we have picked for our disk space. I want you to go to Network and change the attached to from NAT to bridge adapter. This will allow you to connect to the internet once you have the operating system installed. That's perfect. Click OK. Now, before you power it on, it is going to ask you where the operating system ISO image. So we have to download the CentOS ISO image. For that, we'll go to our Firefox. That's a browser that I'm using. Go to Google and type it in download CentOS. Go to the CentOS.org. Click on CentOS Stream because CentOS Linux will give you 7. If you wanted to go with 7, that's still fine. Click on this one on 7 and pick the first one, the first mirror that will allow you to download the ISO image. Now we are going with 8, so CentOS Stream version 8 and x86 underscore 64-bit. Click on it and pick the first one, and then pick the one that says x86-64, the version dvd1.iso, and you will notice it has the high size. Pick this one and it will start downloading. I have already downloaded this ISO image to save some time, so I'm going to cancel it. If you have not downloaded, so please wait until the download completes. All right, so download is completed. I have it downloaded on my desktop. Right here is the downloaded of ISO image. Now go ahead and click on Start. We'll start the virtual machine. Once it starts, it's going to ask you where is the ISO image of the operating system that you wanted to install. So we'll pick this folder, add, where is our ISO image? It is on our desktop, and right here is the ISO image. Click Open and click Choose, and then Start. This page is by default selected test this media and install CentOS Stream. Move your arrow on the keyboard and select the first one, which is install CentOS Stream 8 and hit enter. All right, you're gonna get the welcome to CentOS installation. Pick your language, the region. For me, it's United States, and then click continue. All right, please complete items marked with this icon before continuing to the next step. Keyboard English, leave it default. Installation source local media, which we have picked from our desktop. Installation destination. So this is the 20 gig. It's already checked. Click done. It's checking storage, automatic partitions. We are now going to do the custom partition. We're just picking the automatic partition. Language support, leave it default. Software selection. Server with GUI. You can leave that default unless you want to add more packages. Simply click done. KDump is enabled by default. Leave as is, time and date. For me, it's America's New York. You could change it according to your time and region. Network and host name. Right here, our network is turned on. We'll move this here and change the host name to Ansible control node. Or we could make it shorter by just saying control node. This is going to be the host name of this operating system. Once you click on apply, it will say current host name is controlled node. The network is connected on already. Beautiful. Click done. Now that one is done. Security policy, you don't have to make any changes. Root password, pick a password. Okay, it's saying the password fails the dictionary check. It is based on a dictionary word which you will have to press done twice to confirm. So if you're picking a weak password, that is fine, but you have to press done twice. But of course, I would recommend that you pick a stronger password. All right, since this is again, it's lab, that is fine. The next one right here says user creation. If you want to create a user, you can. I'm going to create a user for myself. Requires a password. Pick a password for that user. Again, it's a weak password. That is fine. So I'm going to click done twice. All right, all the information that is needed has been provided. Perfect. Now click on begin installation. Now this is going to take anywhere from 5 minutes to 20 or 25 minutes, depending on the speed of your computer where you are running this virtual software. All right, I'm going to fast forward from this point. All right, so installation has been completed. Go ahead and click on Reboot System. License information, click I accept the license agreement. Done. Finish configuration. All right, so now you got the login screen. Go ahead and click on your name, or you could click on not listed and type it in root if you wanted to log in as root. Hit enter. Okay, so now we have a desktop. Click on activities and click on the terminal. This is the terminal that we will be using to execute Ansible scripts or Ansible commands. But for that, first we have to install Ansible. So anyway, for this video, we have created a virtual machine and installed a Linux operating system on our virtual machine. And of course, the next step would be to install Ansible software. I'll see you in the next lecture. Hey folks, welcome back. In this video, we will be installing and starting up a package in our Linux machine. So the very first thing is we'll pick a name for the YAML file, which we are creating for our playbook. Then defining the dash dash dash, which tells us that this is going to be a YAML file. Now the name of the playbook, installing and running Apache, or installing and running HTTPD. That's the name of the package of the Apache. All right, the host, where do you want to install and run this Apache package? We want to run it on a local host. All right, the tasks, the third thing. What exactly we're doing? The name is that at this time we will install Apache or HTTPD. All right, tell me the module that you will use to do that installation. We'll use the yum module. All right, or you could use DNF. All right, the name of the package will be HTTPD. Now, this is the exact name that you would use as if you are running yum install followed by the package name or DNF install followed by HTTPD. This has to match with that package. All right, so once we have it, what do you want it to do with this? So we know you want to, the name is a general information. You want to install package and we will be using yum command, but we could also do remove using yum command, and we could also do a lot of other functions with yum. So what do you, exactly you want to do with this package? We want to use the state as present, which tells the Ansible executables that we wanted it to be installed. So the package name is HTTPD, and when you put in the state and you define the state as present, it means that we want the package to be installed. Beautiful. Now the next thing is package is installed. Now we want to start the package, the service of the package to be started. For that, we have to give it a new name for that task, and that is start HTTPD. Now, if you notice, that name is exactly under the same vertical column of the name of the first name where we have the install package. All right, then the module that we will be using to start the service is the service module. And the name for what package for that service we want to install is start, that is HTTPD. All right, now the state. The state here is different than installing it, and that is started. These are the few things that you have to remember. If you do not remember these options, then you could go back to the documentation, go to the module for yum, or go to the module for service, and then you could see what are the options that are available to you and whether you should use the state started or stop or present, where you should use it and where you should not. All right, that's about it. This entire playbook is going to be installing the HTTPD package and starting up its service. Now, once this playbook is completed and saved, then we'll go ahead and run the pack install.yaml file. All right, so let's go to our Linux machine right here and let's log in as root. All right, so we are in our home directory, which is etc Ansible Playbooks, which is the directory we are using to keep all of our playbooks. Who am I? I am logged in as root. All right, perfect. Now let's go ahead and create the YAML file, and we are naming it a pack install, or in short, package install.yaml. Hit enter. Now define dash 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 name installing and running Apache or HTTPD. That's fine. Now, where do you want it to run? We want it to run it on localhost. All right, the tasks. What you want it to do, you want it to, first of all, give it a name of the task. By the way, if you don't give a name for a task, that is still fine. The Ansible would still run, but it is a good practice that you define the name for every module that you will be using to execute the task. All right, the name will be install Apache, and the module we will be using is the YUM module. Great. Now, if you notice, as soon as you hit enter, the the shell knows that you are using YAML, and it knows what are the indentation requirement for YAML file. So you don't have to use the spaces and count the spaces. All right, anyway, coming back, the name of the package that you wanted installed. That is HTTPD, exactly the same name. Now the state, once you have that package, once the package is identified, what do you want it to do? You want it to install it. And for install, you will use the uh, the wording for the install is present. That will tell the system that you want it installed. All right, so that's one task. The second one is I wanted to start the service. So go back to the same where our name is starting. So we'll put a second name for our task, which is start HTTPD. All right, so service, that's the module we need to use. And the name for that is HTTPD, and the state will be started. All right, so this is going to be once again installing it and starting the service. One thing you notice, please pay close attention. The name of the task, when you define the very first name, you put in a hyphen and then you put in the name. This is the general information that will show up when you run it. When you define the module and then you define the module, that, for example, in this example, you have to define the package name, then you do not use the hyphen in this case. Same thing here, the service. What is the name of the service you want to start? The name is this. These names do not use the hyphen. Hyphen is only used when you want to write the text. All right, so that is there. Let's save. And now let's run our Ansible playbook. And by the way, before I do that, let's check if I have HTTPD package installed on my machine or not. So for that, I'll do rpm-qa and grep HTTPD. And let's see if it has it. Nope, there is no package installed on my machine. So now let's run the playbook. Okay. All right, so right here saying installing and running Apache or HTTP. This is the name. As I said, it's just the text. It's nothing else. It's running it against localhost, which is right here. Now it's going to the task install Apache. This is the name again. This is just a text that will show up right on your screen. All right, what module you wanted to use? You wanted to use YUM module. All right, it says task changed to localhost. Yes, we wanted to have it on localhost. The second one is also localhost. Okay, 3 change 2. So 3 meaning this is host 1. This is one of the tasks is considering to identify which host. The second one is install Apache. The third one is restarting the service. All right, now by looking at this, we know that it has worked and the playbook ran successfully. Now to confirm that if we have the package installed, we'll run the same command rpm-qa grep httpd. And you'll see right away, beautiful, we have all these 4 packages that matches httpd. Excellent. Now the next part that we wanted to do is to start that service as well. So in order to check if the service is started, you'll use the command systemctl status httpd. Excellent. You see right here, it says active, loaded. So it is running and it is started. So our playbook did all of that magically. Instead of us running a couple of commands, which is yum install httpd, providing -y every time it asks whether you want to install it or not. Then once it's installed, then we will have to go in and do systemctl start httpd. Then we'll start So maybe it's easier for you to do it on one machine, but what if you have to do the same thing on 10 or 20 different machines? Then it's going to be cumbersome, right? Yes, that's why Ansible comes to your rescue when you have to automate these tasks for multiple machines or remote clients. In this video, we will be creating our very first playbook. There are online YAML tools you can use to create playbooks, and that is for those who do not have much experience with VI editor or Vim editor. So when you log into the Linux machine, you would have to use a VI or Vim editor to create playbooks. But if you do not know how to use that, then the tools that are available for you are like onlineyamltools.com or codebeautify.org. You could also download tools in Windows such as Notepad++, create your YAML file, and then you could copy it over to the Linux system. All right, so before we actually get into creating our very first playbook in our lab environment, the best thing to do is that we take a snapshot because we have installed Ansible software. So we have taken the snapshot when we installed Linux already. Now we will take a second snapshot after we have completed the Ansible software install. So this way, if we make a mistake, we could go back to either the point when we did the Ansible software install or the Linux software install. All right, so for that, we'll go to our Oracle Virtual Manager, and here we'll have a Linux install point. Okay, our machine is running already. That's okay. You could leave it running and you could click on Take and type in the name Ansible install dash point. Now, of course, you could pick any name that will remind you where you or when you took the snapshot. All right, click OK. All right, this is going to be a lot faster, of course, but not as fast as if the machine is powered off. All right, so now you have two snapshots here. You could go back to any one of them when you make a mistake. All right, so that is done. You could go ahead and close this. Now let's go and see what first playbook we are writing. All right, the first thing we have to do is become root. Now you could run playbook as a root user or a normal user. So it doesn't really matter. What matters is what it commands or what function that playbook is going to do. If playbook is going to update your system with the yum update, then of course you need to have that playbook being run or created as a root. All right. What we'll do is we'll create a directory in etc Ansible and we call it playbooks. This is where we keep all our playbooks throughout this course. And then we'll cd into this playbook and we'll create our first YAML file and we'll name it first.yaml. Once we vim the file or edit the file, we'll define dash 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 three hyphens that will signify that this is a YAML file. Then we'll define the name of the playbook, which is my first playbook. Then comes the host. Where do you want to run this tasks or this playbook? We will start off with just localhost. Then the task, what exactly you want it to do. If you notice, the task is right below, the indentation is right below name and host. That matters a lot. It cannot be before or few spaces before the host or name. So what the task is, the name of the task is test connectivity. And now if you pay close attention, the name, the hyphen is right below the task, the T. It can move to the right if you want to, and the corresponding modules is going to be right below it. You cannot have that hyphen before the spaces of the task or the T. All right, the module that we're going to run is the ping module. And again, you notice that ping module is right below the name of the task. All right, let's go into our Linux machine. Right here is a Linux machine. And before we do anything, let's create a snapshot, which we already did, by the way. Sorry. Yes, we have taken our snapshot. Now go ahead and become root, which I am already root. Yes, when I do ID, it shows I am root. Okay, Let's make a directory, etc Ansible Playbooks. This is the directory we will create all our playbooks. Let's cd into the directory. Let's create our first YAML file. Define that it's a YAML file. Put the name my first playbook. Now you could put this double quotes or no quotes, it doesn't really matter. Now when you hit enter, you're going to notice one cool thing of using Vim editor, that it will bring you right below where it should be, and that is under the name. And right here you define the host where you want to run this YAML file against, and we'll run it against the local host. Now when you hit enter, it'll bring you back to the host. We could leave a space, an empty line, to make it look more neat and organized. Come down right here, you define tasks, what exactly you want this playbook to do. The task, now when you hit enter, it will bring you the it will do the indentation for you and move your cursor to the right. Now you could go back and start your indentation right here if you want to. That's fine. Or you could let the Vim editor decide where it's going to be. That's fine. Name. And what is the name of this playbook? Sorry, this tasks. That task will test the connectivity of the local host. And the module that it will use to test the connectivity will be ping module. And that's pretty much it. Hit escape and save the file. Now the file is saved. Now let's do a few checks. Check syntax of playbook. You have to check to see if there are no syntax errors. You could run this command, or you could do a dry run, which is Ansible-playbook. Once the check is complete, then you could run the playbook by running the simple Ansible-playbook command. All right, let's go back to our Linux machine and we'll check the syntax first. So that would be Ansible-playbook dash dash syntax dash check first YAML file. All right, it's telling it the host list is empty, only localhost is available. That is fine. It is only telling you that it's not seeing any hosts in the etc Ansible host file. So that's fine. Now let's do the same thing. Instead of syntax check, we'll do just check, which will run as if it's you're running the actual file, but it won't do anything. It will just tell you the syntax looks good and perfect. Nice. Now we will run the actual playbook, and that is Ansible. Sorry, Ansible dash playbook. And if you are inside of the playbooks directory where the playbook is located, then you could simply put in the name of the playbook. If you are somewhere else, then you have to put in the absolute path. All right, let's run it. Now it's going to check against the local host. It's going to ping it and it's going to tell it everything looks good. Local host task is good. Test connectivity is good. All look good. Now let's go back to our VI editor and go to our playbook. And let's say if we move this one space back accidentally, right? And then come back down here. And now we run our Ansible playbook. Right here, you see it's giving you error message. The error appears to be in etc Ansible playbook first.yaml file, line 3, column 2, but maybe elsewhere in the file depending on the exact syntax. See, indentation matters a lot. So if you go back to it and you move this one step over, then it should run fine. When you run it, it will give you that message that everything looks good. Same way, if you go back to the Vim editor and you move this right here, and now you run it, it will give you that error message again because the ping is not aligned to the name. So for that, you can move this 3-4 steps back. That's fine, but ping has to be exactly aligned where the name is. Now when you run it, it should be okay. There you go. See, it is running fine. There are no issues. Beautiful. All right, so that's what our first Ansible playbook is. Now we wrote the playbook, but if you didn't want to write the playbook, if you remember, we ran the ping module without a playbook, and it was just Ansible, and we ran it against localhost dash m dash module. That is if you do not want to write a playbook and you run it ad hoc command, by the way, which we will cover later on. All right, moving on, please note, running Ansible without a playbook, you will just run the script Ansible. And running Ansible with the playbook, then you have to define that playbook or the location of the playbook. For that, you will run the command Ansible dash playbook, sorry, and then space followed by the Ansible playbook location. All right, so congratulations, you created your first playbook, and we will go on and create a lot more playbooks from this point on. In this video, we are going to run multiple tasks in a playbook. So the playbook will ping the local host as well as it will print the hello world. So previously, we ran a separate playbooks for pinging the local host and another playbook to print hello world on the screen. So what we are doing is we are combining both of those playbook into one playbook. So this way you will have a better understanding how you could run multiple tasks within the same playbook. All right, so very first thing is we have to do is we have to VI or Vim, use the Vim editor to create a playbook. And we are going to name the playbook as mtask or multiple task.yaml file. Then we will put in a dash 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 to identify that it's a YAML file. We'll give it a name, running two tasks, or any name of your choice. Of course, this is the name of the play. Then the host, where are you going to run that tasks? That will be on the local host where you have that Ansible install or where you're running that executable. Then what are the tasks that you are running? Run the following task, and the name of the task, very first one is test connectivity, which of course run ping on the local host to test its connectivity. And what module are we going to use for that task? We are going to use ping module. All right, so that's one task. The second task is to print the hello world. So if you notice, that second task name is right below exactly where the first name is. So it's going to be the name print hello world. And the module we are using, if you remember, that's the second task. Okay, so the module you're running for this is the debug module. And the message, which is the option that you will need to use, is the hello world, which I'm sure you remember, and that is to run this module. All right, after that, what do? We run the playbook, and you should know by now from your heart what's the command for the playbook. It's Ansible-playbook followed by the name of the playbook. All right, let's go to our Linux machine right here, and I am in my playbooks directory, and who am I? I am logged in as root. All right, perfect. Now let's do a vim multitask or mtask.yaml file. All right, define that it's a YAML. Put a name of the playbook or the play. Make sure there's a space. Don't make a mistake, otherwise it won't run it. So running two tasks. So it's just the identification. All right, hit enter. Host, where do you want it to run it on? Right now, everything we are running on localhost. All right, let's give it a space or empty line. So it look clean, automatically indented. So tasks, what are the tasks you want to run? Hit enter, it will automatically advance you to the next line with the right indentation. Name, and the name of the task is test connectivity. Connectivity, all right. And what module you want to use for that test? We want to use ping module. Perfect. Now, what else? I want to run another task. So let's hit enter. Automatically is indenting, but we want to make sure this is considered as one task that has two subtasks. So let's go back to where the name starts. So we're going to put right below where the first name is. So the second name of this same subtask is print hello world. All right. And the module that you want to run for that is the debug with its option message hello world. Double quote closed. Take a look one more time, skim through it, make sure you have not done any mistake. Beautiful. Hit escape and colon WQ to save the file. The file is saved. You could do ls minus ltr. You'll see right here is the file. All right, so let's do Ansible dash playbook and let me clear the screen first of all. Okay, now you run Ansible dash playbook and mtask.yaml. All right, so this is going to ping the local host where we're running the command and it is going to print hello world. All right, ignore the first message, the warning message. All right, here we have everything looks green. Perfect. It's saying running two tasks. This is the name. Remember we defined right here. Name running two tasks. Task where we are running it, if we're running on localhost and it says yes, okay, we are running in localhost. That's fine. Then the next task right here and the name of the task is test connectivity. This is what I put it here. And it says okay localhost, meaning it pinged it, it worked, it has connectivity. Good. What is the next task name? Print hello world. So whatever you have it here, it will print right here. And the debug, which is the module which actually successfully executed, and the message it displayed on the screen is hello world. You could do a play recap right here, localhost OK3. It ran three tasks. It worked perfectly fine. Why three tasks? Because first one is, of course, localhost against this is to gather that facts. Then the second one is test connectivity. And the third one is the local host running the hello world. That's why it tells you OK 3. Nothing else is here changed, nothing unreachable, failed, nothing is there. So it means your multiple task playbook ran successfully. Congratulations. Now you are on the third playbook already. I'll see you in the next one. In this video, we will write a playbook or a second playbook of this course that is going to output something that you wanted to write and then you wanted to output to the screen. So this playbook will print hello world on local host. I'm sure every time you learn a new language, there's one thing they will always ask you to learn is how you could print something on the screen. And most likely it will be hello world. Same way I'm following the same routine or same ritual, and we will create an Ansible playbook that will output hello world on the screen. So the very first thing we'll do is we'll go into our etc Ansible playbook directory and we will create a new file called hello world.yaml file. We'll use Vim editor. Then once we are inside of a Vim editor, we'll define hyphen 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 or dash 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 that will signify or that will identify that it's a YAML file. Then we will put in hyphen space name colon space my second playbook or any name of the playbook. You could also put down the output playbook. So this is going to be the name of the play or playbook. Then we'll define the host where it's going to be run against. So we'll go through localhost again. This will run on localhost. Then the tasks run the following task, and the name of the task would be print hello world. All right. What would be the next step in the task that you want to do? Of course, you need to pick the module that will actually execute your task. And the module name for printing something on the screen will be debug. And you have to define its option of a message equal double quote hello world and double quote close. This run debug module will print statement during execution. And then we'll run this Ansible playbook by running the command ansible-playbook hello world.yml or YAML file. It's just that simple. This is our second playbook, so we'll taking baby step one small playbook at a time. All right, so let's log into my Linux machine, which is right here, and we will go to our Etsy Ansible playbook or playbooks actually, because we have multiple playbooks in this directory. So it's just a little slight mistakes. Anyway, hit enter. We are in playbooks directory. Now we will, before we do vim hello world, let's do ls minus l. And we'll notice that we only have one playbook in it, which is the one we created earlier. Now we are going to create a second one, so we'll do vim hello world dot YAML. All right, we are inside of VI editor. Let's define our identification. That's a YAML file, dash dash dash, hit enter, dash again, space, name, colon, my second playbook, or any name that you wanted to give. All right, as soon as you hit enter, you'll see your cursor automatically comes right below the N letter with the correct indentation. Host, where do you want to run this playbook against? Localhost. All right, give it an empty line to keep it well organized. Now task, hit enter, dash, space, name. What is the name of this task? It is going to print hello world. All right. And what is the module that you will be using that will help you print that hello world? The module will be debug. And MSG is the message that will print, and it will be hello world. Now, if you're thinking, Imran, how do you know that you will have to use the debug module and then you'll use the option message? Well, again, there is a list, a huge list of modules that you could get from Ansible documentation. Once you find the right module, then within the module, you'll find all the different options that is available to you. All right, so our second playbook is done. Beautiful. Let's save our playbook, our file that is created. Now let's run it. Ansible dash playbook and the name of our playbook, which is hello world.yml, and hit enter. All right, it is giving us provided host list is empty. This is just a warning sign, which is again telling us that there is nothing in the host file, which is etc Ansible host. That is fine. So it's going to use localhost. All right, so it went to the localhost, play my second playbook. It did task on the localhost, and task is to print hello world, and the message came out to be hello world. Excellent. So you have just created your second playbook to output something, whatever you want to do, onto the screen. So if you wanted to output the same thing to, or output anything to multiple remote clients, you could use that same playbook and define an Etsy Ansible host file which clients you wanted to display it on. All right, that's how we run the second one. I'll see you in the next lecture where we will learn additional playbooks. In this video, we are going to take a look at the example of a YAML file and how the syntax would work in a YAML file. So the very first thing you would do when you log into your Linux system, then you use a VI or Vim editor, and then you specify the name that you wanted to choose for the file. So here you start the VI editor, and in order to define that it is a YAML file, you have to type it in hyphen, hyphen, hyphen in the very first line. This is what defines that it's a YAML file. Once this is defined, then you put in spaces and put in the name of the playbook. This is the name of the entire playbook as to what playbook is exactly doing. Then you put down the host. If you notice, host is right below, exactly below the name. Make sure there are no additional or less spaces. It has to be right below the name. And this host defines where you want to run this playbook or which host you will be running this playbook against. Then you have another syntax or parameters in the YAML file is the become, which states that run as a different user. If you type it in yes, then it means you will have to define which user you want to run it as. So in the fourth line, you define become underscore user root. Now you do not need to define become yes or become user, which type of user. If you take it out and then you run this playbook as a root, then it will run it as a root. But if you run it as a regular user, then it will run a regular user. This is only defined when you are running as a regular user and you want it to run as a root or vice versa. All right, next thing you notice here is an empty line, and we are starting our tasks after the empty line. Empty line, once again, does not make any difference. And the task is right below where the be or become is. The indentation in the YAML syntax format matters a lot. The task is where you declare the task. You're telling the playbook, okay, playbook, now this is what I want you to run, or this is what I want you to do. And the playbook says, okay, what is that? Then you have to define the name of that play. And the name is, I want you to install Apache HTTP. And it's just a name, it's nothing executable, it's just a defining the name of the task. Look at the task, the T, right below the T, that's where we put in the hyphen, space, then the name. You cannot move this on the left or to the right because it will cause problem when you're going to execute it. So indentation matters. Then it's saying, okay, you want me to run the task, and the name of the task is install Apache. Okay, but what are we doing? So you're telling it use the module yum, run task module yum to install this HTTPD package. All right, perfect. All right, what is the name of that package that you wanted to run using the module yum? That would be HTTPD. Now, this is the exact name that you would use as if you are installing yum install HTTPD or yum install NTPD or yum install any package name. So that package name has to be the exact same name that you would install it with DNF or yum. All right, you're saying this is the name of the package? Perfect. Next thing is state. Now, I'll go and check the package. I'll get the package. Now, what do you want me to do with that package? Well, when you define the state followed by the present, it means what to do, and we are saying present meaning install. Now, there are different type of states in a package which you could get from the documentation, of course, which we will cover in many of the playbooks. So that's what the task will do as one of the tasks. It will get the package and it will install HTTP package. Beautiful. Now, do you want to do anything with this package once that package is installed? Then yes, I want you to do the task within that main task, of course. And this is the second task name. And in the second task, I want you to use the module called service. And then the name of that service is HTTPD. And what do you want the playbook to do? You want you want that package to be started. So these are two tasks that are defined within the same one big task of HTTPD. You could create additional task if you wanted to install another package, but that will be in a different indentation. All of these modules, if you are thinking, Imran, hey, how would I know which state to use and what package to use, or what are the different modules that I could use? Well, as you're going to go through the module and creating Ansible playbooks, you will learn, just like as if you are learning a new language or a programming language. The more you do it, the more you learn about it. So if you go to this documentation, exactly docs.ansible.com, I already have that open for you in my Firefox. This is the address. And here, these are the list of all the modules that are given to you out of the box by Ansible. So if you do Control F to find Yum module, you'll see right here is the Yum module. When you click on it, you will see all the parameters that can be used against that Yum module. So in our example, we are using parameter state, and the choice that we are using for state is present, which means the package, the defined package, has to be installed. And in the second task, we want the package or that service of that package to be started. So for that, you have to go to the service module. This is the Yum module. So we'll go back and do a find on service. Here is the service module. You click on it, you go to parameters, and the state that we define in our example is started, which means to start up the service. So you could get all the different kind of helps from this documentation whenever you want to define a module. And you should spend some time to go over or skim through the list of all the modules that are available to you and what are the different parameters that you could define. Hey folks, in this section we will be creating Ansible playbooks for our remote clients. During our lab setup, if you remember, we created one Linux remote machine and we called it Client 1. We will be using that machine as our remote client and write our playbooks to execute our playbooks against that remote machine. If you have multiple clients or you are in a corporate environment right now, then this is the time to gather the information of your clients so you could add them and execute the task using the Ansible playbooks. In this video, we will learn how to create a new storage, partition that new storage, and mount it on your Linux system. To create or add a new storage to your Linux virtual machine, the first thing you have to do is power off your virtual machine and add a new disk. For this video, we're going to add a 2 gigabyte of disk from our virtualization software. Our virtualization software is our Oracle VirtualBox. So I could show you real quick. By the way, I have already added a disk to save some time. So here is my Oracle Virtual Machine software. I go to setting and then go to storage and select the controller, SATA, and you will see you have your first disk already added here. Now you could add a new disk here, right here, which I have already added by clicking this add new storage attachment. But right now you can see it's grayed out because my virtual machine is powered on. Make sure your virtual machine is powered off in order to add a new disk. All right, so once you go through it, it's very simple. It's a simple wizard. Just follow the prompts and add 2 gig of disk and then click OK. All right, make sure also it's good practice that you take a snapshot just in case you make a mistake and you have to come back again. And this way you don't lose your virtual machine. All right, so once that is done, the next thing we have to do is we will use ported and mount module to run that in the playbook. Now, if you have Ansible distribution, the basic one, sometimes it does not come with parted and mount module. So in that case, you have to install them. And in order to install them, you will have to run this command, Ansible-galaxy space collection space install space community.general. This command will install ported or port D module for you. Then you would run similar command ansible-galaxy space collection space install, and this time ansible.posix. This will install your mount module. All right, so if you do not have ported or mount module, then you define these module in your playbook, then most likely you'll get an error which gonna be like this. Error couldn't resolve module action mount or module action ported. This often indicates a misspelling, miscollection, or incorrect module path. So if you're getting this error message, it means you have to run these two commands. Now, I have already taken the liberty and ran these two commands in my Linux control node, my Ansible control node, and I do have ported and mount modules. All right, so once that is the basic requirement is done, then we'll go ahead and create our playbook, which will create our partition and then mount that partition to our directory. Let's see how it's gonna go. All right, here we have a playbook. We'll create a playbook with the name new storage.yaml. We'll define that it's a YAML file. We'll define the name create and mount new storage. All right, host. Okay, it is right here. It says all, but we will create that on localhost. So you could change that while you're writing it. Then we'll define the tasks. In the task, the very first task of display is to create a new partition. And to create a new partition, we will be using new module, which is ported. Now, once that module is defined, then you have to define the parameters, which is name. What will be the name? Is this the files or is this a swap file? What is that? It's files because we will be using that for a file system. Then label. We have to define label as GPT. This is the label for our partition table, not the file system label. Then the device /dev/sdb, because when we added the new partition through our Oracle VirtualBox, it created a new disk, and that new disk is /dev/sdb. I could show you right now. I'm logged into my control node through a PuTTY client. If you do not have a PuTTY client, you could actually just go simply to the Linux console, the Ansible console. All right, so if I do fdisk -l, you will notice that it has the main disk /dev/sda, which is 20 gig, and it has two partitions, sda1 and sda2. Now, when I added a new storage from Oracle VirtualBox, it gave me this new disk, dev/sdb, and its size is 2 gig. That's the one I specified. All right, good. Now let's go back to our playbook. Then we have to start with the device number. So we want to give it the partition number as SDB1. So we have to specify number 1. The state present, of course, we want to create it, so we are creating with the present. If you want to delete it, then you will do absent. All right, part_start, the number you want to start. This is the size of your partition. You'll start with 1 megabyte and you end with 1 gigabyte. Now, if you wanted to use the entire 2 gig of space, you can, but you cannot specify exactly 2 gigabyte. You have to be a few numbers below it because some of the storage is needed to create this partition. So anyway, just for the purpose of this video, I'm just picking 1 gig out of the 2 gig. All right, now this task or display within that task is going to create my new partition. Now the next task of display is to create XFS file system. Now the partition is created, so now we have to define that this partition is XFS. For that, we'll use the module file system. The file system module is used, then you have to define the device. Where are you putting that XFL file system? We're putting it in dev sdb1, the partition we created in the earlier task. And then the name of the file system, fs type, XFS. If you're putting in, let's say, ext4, then you put it down ext4 here. All right, then task 3, then create mount directory. Now, of course, once the partition is created, it's labeled, it has a file system XFS. Now you have to mount it somewhere. Now, in order to mount it, you gotta have a directory that's already created, or you could create it within this playbook. So we'll create it in this playbook, and we'll use the module file. The path is slash data. State is directory because you always mount file system on a directory. Then the fourth one is mount the actual that file system. For that, we'll use the module mount. The source will be slash dev slash sdb1, and the file system type will be XFS. These are parameters that you have to specify, and the state mounted because that's what you want to do. And the last thing you will do is we will run this playbook. All right, let's go right into our control node. That's where we are creating this playbook. So as I said, I am logged in through PuTTY because this way it will give me a bigger screen. Let's clear the screen. Once again, if you do not have PuTTY or you do not know how to log into PuTTY, you could just simply go to your control node through GUI. Right here, this is the GUI. You could log in and you could do the same thing over there from the console. All right, here I'm logged in as ID root. Which directory I'm in? I'm in etc Ansible playbook. That's where I'm keeping all my playbooks. All right, I have already created this playbook earlier to save some time. So let's go over it and see how I did it. So Vim, I named it new storage. Hit enter. Okay, here you notice I put it in localhost, so make sure you put localhost. But anyway, if you wanted to create that same partition to your client, you could do that. But of course, then you have to create or add that storage to your client, not to your control node. All right, then we come down to task. The first task is create new partition. We already covered that. Everything is defined. Make sure the indentation is set up correctly. Then create XFL file system. File system is the module and the device is dev sdb1 and fs type is XFS. Then we'll create the third one, create mount directory. It will create the path in slash data. And the state is to create not file, actually directory. And the last one is to mount the file system. Beautiful. All right, now let's go ahead and save it. Okay, and by the way, this new storage.yaml file I have already uploaded in the handout. So you could just simply download that and copy that over to your YAML file or into your Linux machine. All right, now is time moment of truth. Let's run the command. But by the way, before I run the command, you notice once again fdisk -l. You notice this disk, the one we are going to partition, does not have any partition. Once we do the partition, you will see the partition right here. Also, another thing, let's clear the screen, df-h, which will give us all the disk partitions mounted. You will see it does not have SDB mounted, and neither it is mounted on any slash data. And we do not have slash data created either. So it will do it everything for us. So let's clear the screen and run the command Ansible dash playbook new storage. Enter. All right. Create and mount storage. This is the name of the playbook. Going to a localhost, create XFL, done. Create mount directory, done. Created mount the file system, done. Change, beautiful. Excellent. So it worked. We didn't get any error messages. So now let's confirm it. Let's clear the screen. Let's do fdisk first to see if it created the file system. Yes, it did. Right here. So you see this was the storage and this is the partition SDB1 and it is created size 1023 which is almost 1 gig. Now let's see if it has created a directory. So we created a directory in slash. So let's do ls-ltr reverse order to see it created the data directory. Yes, it did. Look, right? So now let's clear the screen again. Let's do df-h to see if it mounted. That's the biggest thing. All right, beautiful. It did mount right here. The SDB1 is mounted on data. And the last thing we'll verify, did it create an XFS file system? For that, we'll do df minus t. And right here tells you the device is dev SDB1. The file system type is XFS, the size, and is mounted on slash data. Excellent. So if you have followed it through, perfect. If you're getting error, just make sure you have correct indentation, everything is typed correctly, and you will be able to create and mount new storage. All right, folks, we are getting better and better in creating Ansible playbooks. In this video, we are going to write another Ansible playbook, which will download package from a URL. So the playbook name will be tomcat.yaml file. And by the name of it, you could tell that we will be downloading Tomcat. And this playbook will create a directory for Tomcat with required permissions. It will download Tomcat from a URL and place it in that directory. And then it will also modify the permission of the downloaded file. All right, so real quick, when we write the playbook, it will be tomcat.yaml. Then we'll define dash 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 with the name download tomcat from the location. And this is just the URL of the location where we were going to download it from. Then the host, we're going to go with the local host this time. The task. The first task is to create a directory, and the directory will be /op/tomcat. We have to use the file module. These are the parameters or options. Then the second task is download Tomcat, and we will use module get underscore URL, and these are the options. Then, of course, the last thing is we'll run the tomcat.yaml file. All right, so we'll go right into our Ansible control node, and we are already in etc Ansible playbook. Who am I? I am logged in as root. That's fine. Let's go ahead and vim tomcat.yaml file. Let's define YAML. The name of the playbook, download Tomcat from URL. Just put it like that. And sorry, let's put create a directory and download Tomcat from URL. Okay, now let's come down to hosts. Which host you wanted to have it downloaded? Let's go ahead with our local host this time, which will download right on the control node. All right, tasks. The very first task name is create a directory. Then the module, what module you will use for this task? We'll use the file module. All right, now what options or parameters you will define for that module? First, the path where you want the file to be directory to be created is in /opt, and the directory name will be Tomcat. The state of the directory will be directory because the file module can be used to create either file or a directory. So you have to specify if it's going to be a directory. Then the mod, which is the permission of that directory, 0755. This is, you could change it with change mod as well. Owner, who is going to be the owner of this directory? Let's put it down root. Group, let's do it root as well. You could change it to any other user like Tomcat user as well. But if you are creating owner as Tomcat or group Tomcat, then make sure that user exists in your Linux machine. All right, that's one task. The second task name is download Tomcat using download Tomcat from URL. Just simple as that. All right, now we will use get underscore URL. That's the module. All right, and the URL will be, let's save this file for now because I have already copied the URL in cat temp file location. This is the location of the file where I have copied the entire location. Edit, copy. All right. Now let's go to let's go back to a Tomcat file and then simply paste it right here. Edit, paste. Now make sure if you have the right URL. Don't go with the URL that I have. Always go with the URL that is available right now. You could do that by going to, I have that copied right here in my notepad as well. Let's copy. Let's go to Firefox and let's just simply type right here and you'll see right here it says downloaded completed. So it means this URL is good. If you do not have the correct URL, then I would say do download Tomcat and go to the software, pick which tar.gzip file, then right click and do copy link. That's how you could get the exact location. All right, let's close this. Let's minimize this. Let's go back to our control node. And here we have our URL defined. Now, the destination. Where do you want this file to be downloaded? We want it to be downloaded to Tomcat directory, which we created in the earlier task. All right, do you want to give it a different permission? Yes, 0755. Then do you want to give a different ownership? Yes. You could give a different owner of your choice. Group will be of your choice. Of course, putting down the group or owner first doesn't really matter. All right, let's save the file. And now, moment of truth. Let's run the Ansible playbook. Ansible. So before we run it, let's make sure we do not have any Tomcat directory in our opt directory. Here we have it. There is nothing in /opt. Okay, good. Now let's go back to our etc, Ansible, and playbooks. All right, now let's run our Ansible playbook Tomcat YAML file. All right, the first thing it will do is create a directory and download Tomcat. This is the name. It's showing localhost, and the task is to create a directory, done, and download Tomcat, change, done, done, done. We have no error messages. Excellent. It means our playbook ran successfully. Now that's where we got that information from this output, but we always have to verify by actually going into first checking to see if the directory is created in /opt. All right, let's go to cd /opt. Now let's do ls-l, and you'll see here is the directory that's been created. It is owned by root because we defined root here. It has the right permission, which is read write x for user and executable and read for others. All right, so now let's go into the Tomcat directory and see if it has downloaded the Tomcat gzip file. Let's do cd and do ls-ltr or ls-l, hit enter, and right here is your tar.gz file that we downloaded from this URL. Now, if you notice, it is owned by ifzol, group is owned by ifzol, and it has the right permission. All right, so now you know you learn another module of getting a URL, and if you want to download it and using your URL. Now, if you have to download it, of course, if you remember, if you download it without an Ansible playbook, then you will use wget command. But if you are downloading the same package onto multiple Linux systems, then of course, Ansible playbook would be the best option. Another thing, make sure you have internet access on your Linux machine where you're running this YAML file against. If you want to learn more about Linux, check out my best-selling course on Linux at udemy.com. Or you could go straight to my website, utclsolutions.com, and you will find the exact same course there.